All right, now we're going to begin with our first fireside chat, and it's going to be about digitizing informality, Nigeria's $200 billion opportunity.
Good morning and welcome to, for me, a really exciting opportunity. I have to speak with two of Nigeria's most exciting entrepreneurs. If you're not in this ecosystem, you're probably wondering who they are. You've probably used their services and their business. Really delighted to welcome this morning both Anu and Tosin. And I'm going to start off by just asking Anu, tell us a bit about early life, how you ended up in business, and why you decided to build Sabi.
Early life. I don't. I don't quite know where to start there.
Start with education. I want people to just
Okay, funny enough.
understand and be able to relate to your backgrounds.
Okay, fair enough. So, actually, funny enough, my education has a lot to do with how I ended up here. So, I studied economics and politics, and then I did my master's in management, organizations, and governance at LSE. And as part of my thesis, it was a project, an entrepreneurial project, and we were invited to join I don't know if you know Rainmaking, the boot camp.
Yes.
The accelerator in Copenhagen. So that was my first startup kind of thing. But I was homesick, so I came home to do NYSC and kind of abandoned that company. And then I was working in Dangote and then KPMG in management consulting and so on. But then I ended up in Jumia. My last role at Jumia was offline sales. And it was a really big part of the business that we didn't grow too aggressively because, Jumia was very focused on the online part of things. But it's where I really learned how to handle the offline elements and agent networks and so on. And then I was at Rensource, which is a distributed energy company which does renewable energies, and we were very big in open air markets, powering those markets. And that was the other place that we did a lot of work on how to provide value-added services to the merchants we were powering. Then COVID came and scattered a lot of things. But what happened was our markets were shut down and the team was a bit bored. So we were trying to figure out how to help businesses. And so we released a tool, one of the tools we had built for value-added services, and that kind of snowballed into what Sabi was. So Sabi was born of a lot of learnings by myself and my co-founder from our previous experiences, and kind of took on a life of its own, yeah.
Fantastic. Anu doesn't tell you half the story, but I understand why she does this. She was born in retail, in markets in Nigeria. And I can very well understand why you do what you do. Tosin, tell us a bit about your early background and also how you came to build TeamApt.
Okay. I think I will go back maybe to my childhood. I think for me, I think I just realized I liked building. I think my early years were when so I didn't have toys growing up like that. So I used to build toys for myself. I just now realized that almost every free time I had, I was always doing one project or the other, electronics projects, engineering projects, and I liked making money out of it. So, of course, I progressed through school, was the JETS president in my secondary school. That's the junior engineers and technicians. Got admission into Obafemi or Ife, studied mechanical engineering there. I built a mini business in Ife then as a side project, helping students build their final year projects. And I think it was then that I kind of made a decision that I was going to build a company. Initially, I thought I was going to build like a hardware company, like a Sony, a Samsung. I think it was quick. I quickly realized that China was going to win us, hands down, in that. So I refocused my efforts on software.
Yep.
So Immediately after school, I got a job in InterSwitch. At that time, InterSwitch is still one of the coolest startups then, and I got a referral to work there. So I became an engineer there. Did about 5 years, moving from roles from engineering to engineering leadership to product management, and started TeamApt in 2015.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's how my background kind of
Excellent.
evolved,
Excellent.
engineering and business.
So there's something about both of your businesses for me which is really a greater sort of purpose or mission than just making money. And I want to hear it in your own words. I'll start with you, Tosin, and I'll come back to you, Anu.
So I think the way I see money is a measure of success. It's not the goal. And I think the goal, there are much more longer lasting goals. Typically, the best one is impact. Typically is how can you change, improve lives of people around you. Oftentimes it's a social mission. And if you're a for-profit organization, the best way to measure that impact is profits at the end of the day. So if you're a for-profit company, and that's what we are, I basically measure myself. The biggest moments of happiness for me have always been when I have seen lives literally transform in front of me, from people that were barely making ends meet, now becoming pillars of their society. And we have thousands and thousands of such stories. And if at the end of the day, you can see money also being accumulated somewhere, then I think it's an ultimate measurement of success for me.
Fantastic. Anu?
So perhaps I will speak to what you referred to. So yeah, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, industrial background. And so I grew up kind of on the manufacturing floor. And also in distributorships and so on. And what you see and learn very quickly is, how small changes on a macro level just like can completely destroy micro level dynamics in people's lives and so on. And I think one thing I've always been very conscious about is, similar to Tosin, is like, what can you do that, of course, you want to make money, but what are you doing that's changing lives? And I think at Sabi, for us, we're very deliberate in our thesis on how to grow businesses, being not about displacing a part of the value chain, but about enabling it. So what we do is focus on how are we helping the businesses we work with grow? And we measure that in two ways. Either we're helping you reduce your costs, or we're helping you increase your top line. How are we helping you make more money? And it's a very, very validating feeling. Like, people call you up. Like, sometimes merchants call me up when they need something, or, they send text. They literally send text praying for team members and things like that. And it's a super gratifying thing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let me ask you both, because in a market like this, entrepreneurship is also about something that's quite important, which is job creation. How many people do you employ directly, and do you think about the number of people you employ indirectly?
How many people do we employ direct? Do you know, I do not know that number offhand. I think it's 250 something.
Fantastic.
In 3 countries.
And Tosin?
5,900.
These are the people keeping Nigeria growing.
I would say is, and especially with TeamApt, so we have 200 and something thousand merchants. I don't even know where to start with that numbers.
No, I didn't count the merchants.
No, I know.
You didn't count the indirect, both of you. The indirect is hundreds of thousands.
The impact is in the indirect.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And TeamApt is doing that in a wild way, really special.
Absolutely. So you're all sitting in this market. It's got 214 million people today. Africa, on a broader scale, which is your playing ground, has got 1.2 billion people. Over the next 20 years, potentially, Nigeria's 200 million people will become 400 million people, and there could potentially be up to 1.82 billion people living on this continent. If you think about what both of you do, and we think about, the revenue opportunity around this, it's been viewed by some as a $200 billion revenue opportunity. I actually think that they are under projecting it. How big do you think this opportunity is, and how do you grow, and how are you going to take advantage of the marketplace in which you are today over the next decade, as an example?
Okay. I mean, key stats. Most African economies are informal, and GDPs on a GDP basis, literally half of the GDP is generated in the informal markets. So that's
or probably even unmeasured.
80% is what we have.
Okay, thank you. Right. So let me rephrase and say a conservative estimation is a minimum of half. Yeah. So starting with that, 2, there's systematic exclusion. The reason is because the existing players, and like she said, not necessarily disruption, but simply because the tools and processes and technology and will that you need to be able to serve these guys have not really been built so far. So the time is kind of now to include these guys. So when you talk about this half of the GDP and the number of entrepreneurs and the number of people that they now employ, and the kind of opportunities that you have in empowering their payments, empowering their credits, in empowering their forex solutions, in giving them tools and businesses that they need to run their businesses, I kind of think that it's like you mentioned, it's like the holy grail. For example, the kind of growth that we have experienced is not simply just because of entrepreneurship or great products. There are strong tailwinds of people that are yearning for solutions that will help and improve their lives. And the thing here is that Nigeria, being one of the largest economies in Africa, is even quite advanced, right? If you now start to move into more countries in Africa, in Central America, you will begin to now marvel at the scale. And this is a combination of 2 things. How do you access these things? And this is what prior to now has not been built. The right technology built for them. I'm not talking of imported technology or technologies connected together by some sellotape. Something purposely built for them. And distribution. It is, you can build something, but you won't be able to get it to them. If you are able to put those 2 things together, distribution, right products, right incentives, I think there's a strong tailwind that is simply going to continue pushing you in those directions.
Yeah, I agree completely. So I think one thing, when you apply rigor and frameworks, and we size our market, we say it's 180 billion in the countries we're in and we plan to be in, $180 billion annualized. But to be honest, I think no one really understands the size of these markets.
Correct.
Yeah. Like when people see our numbers, they're like, wow, you guys grow like crazy. And I'm like, to be honest, ask me about market penetration. Because while you may look at our numbers against other startups and say these numbers are high, if you ask me my market penetration, is nothing. And these markets are huge. The issue is no one has really, really done the groundwork to go and capture the market. Distribution is literally everything.
It is.
It's like when Tosin is talking about technology, it's not just like this technology doesn't exist. It's how you combine it for the market you're delivering it to. And the difficulty is that groundwork. And to be honest, the organizational design needed to deliver that technology to the market is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to get people with the right skill sets to be able to think of how to distribute to this market. So that, I think, is why it hasn't been done. But if you're thinking about the size of the market and the potential, it's insane. And you're not just talking about places like Nigeria, where I think everyone kind of understands that Nigeria is this beast that no one has figured out how to tame. If you even go to places like the DRC, where you don't even have a road that connects the entire country, and you understand the appetite of the demand. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a dollarized economy that no one has built real solutions for. You begin to understand how we can really build businesses at serious scale. I think it sounds extremely cliche to say that this is Africa's time, but it really, really is. Because you have the investor interest that drives it, you have the demand, you have the technical know-how, and you have the people that are interested in staying here to deliver it. I think over the next few years, we'll see a number of very large companies solving local problems.
I think what strikes me about both of you, and I'm really happy, in the way that you both responded to those questions, is really that you are for young people, real masters of your craft. And you figured out some age-long problems on this continent in our informal markets that, MBA school could never have taught you. Work experience, if you don't get into, retail in a hands-on way in this markets, could never have taught you. And I think you really understand the potential and the scale that's available across these markets. As you've built these businesses, they've grown very, very rapidly. I'm sure that you've experienced some growing pains and challenges. And I'd like to start with you, Anu. What are some of those growing pains and challenges?
Growing pains and challenges. To be honest, I think that's our biggest problem, is the growth rate is just too fast. See, I don't even know where to start. So I think, first of all, if I start on the dev side, which... so Nigerians are the hottest commodity in the world, Nigerian developers. So we have the problem of, can we use our own talent? So it's literally cheaper net to use European developers, because by the time you put in place, calculate the cost of turnover and the loss of traction from losing devs to Canadian, German, every company, so you have that kind of just technical development problems, which are solvable but painful to deal with. Then you have the problem of who actually has the capacity to deal with it. So for instance, my team's problem is, if I were to recruit someone today who can handle a target of $10 million a month, if I'm growing 40% a month, they can't handle that in 2 months. They're doing double what they're used to or they have the experience for. So you can't even recruit people with pertinent experience. You have to recruit people with pertinent experience that have a unique ability to grow. And this is not an African problem, it's a global problem. Right. You're not just recruiting here. You're working with the best recruiters in the world. And it's actually very difficult to find people that can grow at that capacity. Yeah. So the shape and mindset and skill set of people you need to grow out at this pace is actually very difficult to do. And so I find, and I'm super interested to hear what Tosin will say, I find that the biggest challenge for me is people. And when I say people, people think, you mean, because Africans don't have the skill set. No, Africans have the skill set. They're super fancy. They've gone to Harvard. They were on the ground. You have super profiles here. But the problem is, globally, there are very few people that can work that hard and be that smart and see the vision and not burn out. Exactly. And understand cultural differences between Kenya and South Africa and Nigeria and still be kind and not get frustrated and shout on their teammates. And a business in the end is the people. The tech is built by people, etc. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And then the next thing for us is really around the balance in strategy. I think startups are very dangerous things. The startup dynamic, I can literally see my co-founder's face telling me to shut up. But he's not, thankfully. The startup dynamic is an extremely unhealthy one in that it's not natural for a company to grow as fast as us. Yep. It's not normal. There's no way that you expect a company to grow 2,000-3,000% a year and it's natural. Yeah. Someone is literally giving you money to kind of like kill yourself. And what's happening is they're like, hey, there's 10 of you, 8 of you are going to die, but the 2 of you that live, you're going to make up for the 8. Yes. So everybody that's in that dynamic with you is trying to survive an unnatural dynamic. And so maintaining the sense that, I have to do this dance, But at the same time, I have to build a business that actually makes money.
That's it.
So for instance, there are times you could make the decision, I can be profitable.
Yep.
But then, I shouldn't be profitable. Because this guy gave me $20 million. And that means that $20 million is trying to make me a unicorn. Meaning, maybe I could make $1 million profit a month. But no, I need to give them $50 million a month. And where's the right line? So I think that's the other thing. Like when you're growing this fast, how do you still have healthy dynamics?
Yeah. Really, great insights there.
Yeah, I think I know said the
Tosin.
two things that are my biggest challenges. Also. Like, sister, we're together. So I think talent is like the hardest thing right now, especially tech, specifically engineering and business leaders. And those are the two biggest problems that we also have in our organization. For example, I could say right now we have vacancies of, say, 100 plus engineers right now.
Yeah.
Say that we have easily 100 plus engineers vacancy. And for us, it's not, for example, even giving up finding senior engineering talents in Nigeria. We've literally moved out, like Europe or Southeast Asia. And, but even still, finding them, even there, is still like a lot of work to do. Because technical talents are globally fungible. They can work anywhere. Big tech are also hiring they've been hiring like crazy. Yeah. Maybe they slow down now. So being able to fill those roles as fast as possible. Secondly, like she also mentioned, business leaders that are capable of growing fast with the organization. These are unprecedented products. It's not just about experience. It's about you also having the ability and talent to be able to change as things are evolving with you. And you can't scale an organization by micromanaging people. You need to have people that you can give fire and forget. Give it to them, literally just check back, and they are making very good decisions. So, hook, line, and sinker, everything she said is spot on.
Talent.
Secondly, will be fundraising also.
Yeah.
Investor stuff. We're in a slightly different position because we are profitable, growing fast also. But also, if one of the things that you're trying to do is to go for an eventual exit, you also need to build a certain kind of profile. And I think there are just few companies at our scale right now, and that's kind of like bringing up special problems. The problem now is investors are specifically thinking about exits. How can if you're AB, you're still thinking, okay, I can exit to the next investor. Yeah. But anybody who is coming on a CD is thinking, now there are not too many stories out there of those kind of possibilities. So needing to come up with new routes, new systems with clarity of how this can happen. And it's probably not the same problem that an European or an American startup of the same scale will have.
And that's a really good segue into the next point that I'm going to make. I think first and foremost, when you look at these two entrepreneurs, I really want to send a message of hope to young Nigerians every day who get up and, they wake up, they're thinking about how they're going to end up in Canada. Some of the things they're going to look for in Canada are being built here. World-class businesses that will become very, very valuable. Remember this date, all of you in the audience. At least one of these two businesses will not only be a unicorn, one of these two businesses, actually at the scale that they're growing, can become a decacorn. And the 13th of October 2022, I said it on this stage, and I hope you all don't forget it. But I think you all have a unique responsibility in this environment. And I'm going to pick on a couple of things. As you travel this journey, it's really important that we ensure that there is local capital in everything you do. Otherwise, what we will do is you would have built these unique businesses that are solving uniquely Nigerian and African problems, and all of the value and the IP is owned, somewhere else in the world. It's also important that you're really true to those endeavor ethos about dragging along the ecosystem and ensuring that some part of your capital structure is Nigerian, I think is very, very fundamental. The second thing to my mind that I want you all to think about and I'll challenge you all with is how we scale up. The world is short of software engineers, not just Nigeria. And a large part of Nigeria's development will come from digitalizing Nigeria. And you both play very, very unique roles with your businesses, as long as as well as the next business we'll be hearing from in that ecosystem. And I really hope that you keep that very much in your focus, yeah? How you can also help to develop, right? And invest into, yeah, developing the next generation of Nigerian software engineers. I think that's really important. Now, let me, as we round up, ask each and every one of you to look into the future and tell me, you know, what that future sort of portends for each of your individual businesses. Tell us a bit about where you are in terms of capital raising, yeah? Both of you have raised a bit of capital. How you think about, you know, going forward, and you've touched on potential exits, also talk about exit pathways. Can I start with you, Tosin? I'll come back to you, Anu.
All right. If we're looking to the future, I say in 5 years' time, what will TeamApt Money Point look like? We will be servicing millions of actively, millions of businesses will be using our platforms. Possibly a few units of millions of businesses will be servicing will be active on our platforms, doing payments, credits, and some business tools. We'll be present in more countries than we're currently present in, possibly also outside of Africa in more emerging markets. We should be having revenues getting close to $1 billion, if not on that already. We will continue being profitable, maintaining healthy gross margins. Exits, we probably, it's one of three things. Either we've listed or we have a very heavy PE buyout, or we...
Yeah, very heavy. Yeah.
So maybe a good portion is acquired by some PEs, or maybe some acquisition, outright acquisition. I think one of those three things.
That's true.
There, yeah.
Anu?
What will Sabi look like? I think we're in 3 countries today. No francophone. I think we'll be entering the francophone space more, possibly outside Africa, but our focus tends to be Africa. For us, what our game is really at making sure we're enabling as many businesses to grow and enabling as many livelihoods as possible. I think in terms of quantums, you know, I always think about it, you know who I most think about is MTN. So because when people are looking at Nigeria's GDP, they're always looking at like the official number, but if you think that MTN managed to double, I think a 1 trillion naira performance in the space of a year, I think the size of the markets is clear and the possibility of growth, because if you assume people are spending even if you make it 10% of their disposable income on credit, it's still a wild number.
Yeah.
In terms of exits, the perennial question of every large investor, I think the most likely for most companies and us is going public. There's always the possibility of a very large buyout, but we'll see. I always struggle when talking about the future, except to say that I'm very clear on the size of the demand and our ability to meet it. And I'm very clear that we will continue to multiply significantly year on year.
Fantastic. Let me thank you both this morning. You're a remarkable example of the pleasure that people like, you know, myself, our board member, Jadip, you know, our chairman, at Edo Peterside, why we enjoy, being involved with Endeavor. I've really been very, very blessed to sit, this morning with two remarkable young Nigerians building an incredible future, not only for this country, but for this continent. I'm even prouder of the businesses that you've built, both of you, and keep it going. Please don't ever change. And the more you succeed, the more humble you must stay. God bless you both. I've had a phenomenal time talking to them. Please give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all.
We actually did have one question that came in. I remember we were asking our audience to use the QR code on the back of your tag.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so we just had one question that came in that asked for entrepreneurs in the tech ecosystem, Tosin and Anu, how do you navigate past, that's in the tech ecosystem in Nigeria, how do you navigate past the infrastructure challenges?
I think you should consider that an opportunity, in my own opinion. There are some that you just really can't do, but that's really the opportunity. If the infrastructure was there, everybody would have done it.
Correct.
So
Exactly.
That's it.
That's the work. It's like, it's the infrastructure gaps you're solving for, right? And I think we have a sometimes dangerous mindset where we think like, maybe it's real and there are problems, but also it's just what it is. You just have to design around it.
Yeah.
It's just a thing. It's like the sky is blue, there's infrastructure, wahala.
Yeah.
So
Get
if
on
I
with
give an example now, if in the UK you can get cards delivered very, very
Like this.
easily
Yeah.
because they are UK royal parcel delivery services. In Nigeria, you have to build it out. But in the UK, you can also have several startups building the same thing.
Yeah.
In here, only a few people that can execute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also think as we build out those systems, it will spur on new entrepreneurship to come support those systems, and infrastructure can develop
Fantastic.
from the private angle.
I've had the privilege of speaking to this morning Tosin Eniolorunda from TeamApt, Anu Adedoyin Adasolum from Sabi. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a warm round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
And a round of applause for our moderator as well, Mr. Bolaji Balogun, Vice Chair of the Board of Directors for Endeavor Nigeria. Great conversations there.